turn that off, I think. Follow me off. Engine off. I'm going to cheat to get into the case. Okay. I am playing on a PC, yes. So this is the farming agency version of Oakfield Farm. So we have the Maize Plus crops, the complicated animal feed system, and all sorts of other fun going on. We're playing with seasons, we're playing with precision farming. So lots of learning new stuff, and some of it won't be applicable to Farm Sim 17. I am hoping precision farming is, and that the notes we're making on this playthrough are applicable. I've got that. I was going to feed those bales to the sheep, so that's okay. Yeah. We're kind of waiting to see whether Farm Sim 22 will be more universal, so that PCs and consoles can play together, or whether they'll still be segregated. I haven't heard anything on that one way or another, so it's really speculation at the moment. But they are expanding the slot count for consoles and other things. So it might be that, you know, you can play with a console person hosting, but if a PC person's hosting, then you can only join if you're PC. We'll have to see. I mean, it kind of makes sense that might be allowed, because mods are limited on consoles more so than on PC. Long hauler, good afternoon. Welcome to Saturday. It's like we're about to get storms here. Ooh. You catch us at the beginning. I was going to say you catch us at the middle of contract on field 17, but it's not the middle. We have a long way to go to get to the middle. Okay, nope, that's the burger bar. Oh, good grief. Brakes are optional. Dancer VLT 69, hello and welcome to Saturday stream on Oakfield Farm Farming Agency Edition. Especially on sugarcane, no mods for it on PS4. Are there that many mods for sugarcane on PC either? Sugarcane's a horrible crop to do. Well, the thing is with the crops is the income is based on the amount of work you have to do. So sugarcane is kind of a good crop if you want to make loads of money. But and the same is true with sugar beets and potatoes. We're doing sugar beets and potatoes on this particular playthrough. So it's a lot of work to get them done, but the income is very rewarding. I just don't do a lot of them because it does get painful. Okay, that is 8% transported. Whoa. Yay, 8%. We are 13% done though, so not too shabby, I guess. Oh, let's go out the Willow Stores exit rather than through the BGA. Okay, I'll take this home, or back to the field. So what was it, 13% done? Well, so if I sell the straw bales I've collected, is that going to adversely affect the contract? Or is collect straw in contracts just a bonus to me? This tractor needs cleaned too. Well, it's done 2 full fields of triticale. Oh, there's another vehicle coming. Go. Totally unrealistic. But it'll be sat behind him for hours. So, okay, this is the village. And the sawmill. Okay, that's better. Where's the harvester? It's right at the bottom. Okay, that's a good thing. So we'll swing in, unload the harvester, I'll jump into the class, and we'll take that back to the yard with the bales. Yay, actual income. It's going to be a long time before we can afford to buy this field for ourselves. 1.7 million pounds. Definitely planning to increase our land holdings. Okay, forward, load over the axles, we'll turn that off, and that's handy. Go take the straw in. So I'm guessing we have probably a full trailer of straw to pick already. Oh. But yeah, once we get onto the potatoes and the sugar beets, we're going to have to do some ploughing as well, which I'm really looking forward to. How long have we been doing this one so far? Well, I mean, we started at 10 o'clock. I think we'll be done before nightfall. Fortunately, it's summer, so nightfall's very late in the day. That grass in that field, the sheep are disappearing into it. Alrighty. Now the thing, I mean, farming agency maps vary. This one does not support straw for sheep, which is a nice thing. But then that means it doesn't support manure for sheep either, which could be handy. I do believe Chellington does support straw and manure for sheep. That turned a little bit too tight. So, try that again. All right, income. Awesome. No. The way it works, pull up the seasons menu. You pick the length of a season. So 9 days, there's 3 parts to a season, effectively 3 months to a season, if you were looking at it in real life. So I have 9 days per season. That's 3 days per season period. So we go back to here. That's early spring, that's mid-spring, that's late spring, then you're into summer. So 9 days of spring, 9 days of summer, 9 days of fall, 9 days of winter. And as I said, you select, and it's in multiples of 3. So the quickest you can play is a 3-day season. So 1 day of early, day 2 is mid, day 3 is late. And you can play up to 24 days a season, which would give you up to 8 days here, 8 days here, and 8 days here. Now obviously the longer you make the season, the more game time has to pass in order to progress through a year. You can only plant. Oops. Why is that not working? Okay, there we go. You can only plant crops during the green cycle. You can only harvest through the yellow cycle. So we can only harvest wheat up to the end of early fall or autumn, and that is whenever it is. Barley, end of summer has to be done. Canola, no, that's cotton, end of summer. Now canola we can plant next month, and then we'll harvest next spring. And back, there we go. So it's more restrictive. You can only plant during planting season, you can only harvest during harvest season, and then you've got the time between to do the fertilizing and all the rest of it. So you need to have things to do. If you were playing a 24-day season, you're playing 24 days of winter. And if it snows, you're just sitting around doing nothing. However, if you're playing a 3-day season and you're playing on a fairly wet geo, that does risk not completing your harvesting because it's too wet to harvest, and there is a length of time after it stops raining for the crop to dry out. Depending on how much rain you get, you might have to wait a couple of hours, you might have to wait an entire day before the crop gets dry enough to harvest. So if you're playing with a couple of days, you might not get your harvest done. If you're playing with many days, like we are here, a 9-day season, then there's less risk of losing crop because it's too wet to harvest. But there's still risk. So it's all kinds of interesting. Let's get that round there. Okay, I'm able to steal the straw because I'm using a mod called something like straw from contracts. Right, this is the Farming Agency Edition version of this map. I did start this series on Oxygen David's version of the map on a 6-day season. Now, the thing is as I buy more fields, with the size of equipment I have, it becomes more and more difficult to complete a harvest in 6 days. Oh, slow down, slow down, slow down. So yeah, it's just a mod that allows you to collect straw from contracts, which is good for an animal farmer who's not doing any arable crops. You could obviously, yeah, if you're doing what is it, cattle farm, either dairy or meat, and just planted grass fields, you could collect the straw, you can collect the hay, collect grass and turn it into silage, however you want to do that, but you've got no access to straw. Now with the collect straw from contracts, you could do a couple of wheat, barley, oat contracts and collect their straw and use that on your farm and get paid for doing the contract. Obviously, since you're a cattle farmer, you probably wouldn't have a harvester or any of that equipment, but you have baling equipment and you have bale collecting equipment. Just don't complete the contract until you've collected everything, because I don't know what happens, you might lose it. 2 more bales and we are full again. I think we'll go and sell this lot as well. And then we'll come back, pick up the bales that are on the ground. I don't think there's a full 14 there. Come on. And I'm going to need something to eat, so we'll be calling it a day soon. I think we've had a fairly successful day. We've put digestate on the field to our left, and we're going to leave that for about a month or two, and then we'll plant the canola. The other field we planted oilseed radish, that we're going to leave till spring. And sunflowers, late spring planting. Late spring, early summer, I believe. I'd kind of like to get planting as early as possible in the planting cycle for each crop, because then it's ready to harvest at the earliest point in the harvest cycle. And that allows you to spread things out. So we've already harvested all of our cereals for the year, and it's just turned late summer. They were ready to harvest in midsummer, so I have those 2 fields to prepare for next year, and I don't have anything else to harvest yet. So I'm really not rushed. We could probably play 6-day seasons and still not be rushed, but I've got 9 running, and I accidentally left it at 9, and so I'm not bothering changing it. The other thing with the length of seasons is how much food you feed the animals at any given time. You can only feed the animals 2 days worth of food, and the amount of food you feed them is fixed for it. Well, it is, yeah, let's call it fixed for a year. So if I pull up the seasons menu again and my animals, here we have 250 sheep in Bramblewood Field, and they eat 280,000, call it 280,000 litres of food every year. But that 280,000 litres is divided by the number of days in the year. So if we go back to here, I've got 9, 18, 36, if I add that up right. So you take that number divided by 36, and that's how much food do they eat per day. So the more the more days, seasonal days you have, the less you have to feed your animals in a day, but the more the more often you have to feed them. On a 3-day season, you might have to feed your animals, what would it be? 3 days, 3, 7, 12. I'd have to feed my animals 50,000 litres of food per day on a 3-day season. On a 9-day season, I have to feed them less than that. 15,000 litres maybe, I don't know. So that is something to be aware of. It is very, very well balanced for animals. It doesn't matter how many days per season you pick. Animals always eat the same amount per year. They produce this. I think their production is the same. So wool and milk and things like that, it's the same production per year. Oh, we need to put down. It's just spread out over more days. They'll have the same number of babies per year, but it's spread out over more days. And that's where things like the horse helper mod, when it was originally implemented, didn't work well with seasons, because it just charged you $300 a day per horse, while your horse income is basically the annual income for a horse for the year, divided by the number of days you had. So if you were playing a 24-day season with horses and a horse helper mod, you would always lose money on your horses, because you're paying $300 a day and they're not making that much. Whereas if you paid a 3-day season, you paid $300 per day and your horses were making $1,200 a day. So you're making money at that point, quite a lot per day. So, but I believe the person who did the horse helper mod did modify it so that if you're playing with seasons, the horse helper charge was scaled. So that's a thing of, do mods play well together? Sometimes they do, sometimes they don't. When Seasons released, Horse Helper didn't play well, but I believe that's been fixed, so now that works. But always be careful of things like that. There's mod conflicts all over the place. So I tend to have a list of mods I always play with because I know they play well together, and then I'll introduce other mods that I find interesting. And then if the mod doesn't work, I remove it, and if it does work, it goes on my list of, okay, I want to play with these mods all the time. So it's like my extended driving mod. I used a different one originally, and that one didn't play well with the guidance steering GPS mod. But I found a new one which is actually better, and that does work with it. So I don't use extended driving, I use something else. And in all likelihood, when we finish this series, I will go through the list of mods I have loaded, and I usually thank the modders even though they probably don't watch the show. Okay, we'll grab that. I've got mine already. And park this up here. Fold that away. Turn the engine off. We'll jump back to there. We'll pull that out of the way. So, there we go. How did we do? We got 13% of the way through the contract, so that's going to take us a while. Numeric-wise, we have created... Oh, it doesn't tell us how many bales. They're not our bales, so it doesn't actually tell you how many bales you created on a contract. We've created 583 of our own. We put in 3 hours today. Actually, we've done a little bit more because we were having manure truck issues. Used 51,000 litres of manure. Only 900 litres of oilseed radish, and 22 acres of stuff. 7 acres, so that field over there is just 7. The other one's 22. So 30 litres. How many have we got? So our triticale stores are somewhere there. So we got 305,000 litres of triticale, and best selling time is not till middle of winter. So we'll hold on to those. We'll do the same with the wheat. We'll complete the contract delivery, and all of the wheat we keep we'll put in our own silos until we're done. And I'm not worried about that. We don't have any of our own wheat fields. So that's all done. Type. Meanwhile, our pH levels are diminished on this field and this field, but not to a significant amount. Going to be interesting to see how much pH we get added to here, because that's down around 40 to 60, and that is going to be this stuff, sunflowers, which is only 80 to 100. Looks like this might be over-saturated for sunflowers. So already we now know that if we put digestate or slurry or manure down on this field, on a field, you're going to blow out the nitrogen requirements for sunflowers and potentially have a bad harvest. Obviously, these fields are not going to be a problem next year because we'll be planting cereal on there, and we're going to need somewhere in the region of 160, 180 kilograms per hectare. So we could probably do digestate plus oilseed radish and still have capacity for more fertilizer. That's something we're going to learn at the end of the year as we start preparing our fields for next year. But for right now, we are 13% of the way through harvesting the biggest field on the map. At least it wasn't potatoes. But I need to go and eat something. I also need to go and drink something because my throat's getting a bit dry. So I will wish you all a good weekend. We will be back next week at 9 o'clock-ish Eastern US time. But for right now, have a good weekend and I'm out of here.